Hello friends, it's Cindy Brumbaugh from CindyLeeBDesigns.com, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'd like to show you 7 cards we're going to make doing a one-sheet wonder where we make our own 8.5 by 11 designer series paper. We're going to use the bright, fresh new in colors for 2018 to 2020. We're going to be using Blueberry Bushel, Pineapple Punch, Lovely Lipstick, Grapefruit Grove, and Call Me Clover. When I saw Call Me Clover, I knew I could make a designer paper using floral images and leaves and stems. So that led me to a neat stamp set that is in one of our kits in our current annual catalog, and it is carrying over. And this kit is called the Soft Sayings Kit. On page 10, you can see all the materials that you'll have and the supplies to make these cards, but it has a great stamp set in all occasion. Congratulations, thanks, happy birthday, just a note, love you lots. So we're going to be making our own designer series paper using these bright colors and this stamp set and make 7 cards. So let's get started. We're going to put our stamp sets aside, stamp pads aside, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an 8.5 by 11 sheet of designer series paper using the images found in this stamp set. So you'll see here, this is a copy because I already cut our paper to the dimensions that we needed, so I didn't want to end up messing it up on the video. So what I did is I just made a copy on my computer, but of course there's a bleed area on it. So just imagine this is stamped, especially stamped off of the sheet when you're doing this. And I just took and started with the bigger flower image, and I did Blueberry Bushel. I scattered it around my page. Then I did the Lovely Lipstick, and then the Pineapple Punch, and the Grapefruit Grove. Then I went back and did the Call Me Clover big leaves around it. And then I went back in with the Lovely Lipstick, and I put some of the pink flowers around, and then I decided to do the Pineapple Punch and the Grapefruit Grove. Of course, these colors aren't as vibrant as you see on the cards that we're making because I did make a copy of this, but I wanted to show you how we're going to cut it. It's a very simple template, and this is what the template is like. And don't worry about writing all this down or worrying about how to do this because I'm going to have all of this information on my blog, CindyLeeBDesigns.com. It'll have the measurements and all the materials I used. So this is called the One Sheet Wonder, and it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then we're going to cut it specifically to make 7 different cards. Okay, so to get started, we are going to get our paper trimmer. Love my paper trimmer. We used it at class last month on all 3 of our cards. Okay, so I'm going to show you here that the first cut I'm going to make is on the 8. So what I'm going to do is bring this over to 5.5. I'm on the 11-inch side, and I want to cut it so that I have it right in half. And there, now I have 2 pieces here. So you can see now these are going to be the 2 pieces here. So looking at our template, we can see that we're going to need to have these triangles cut. It's very important at this point that you don't just take and cut this in half. You have to do it exactly the way it is. So let's just cut this in half here. So of course this is 8.5 here. So we're going to cut it at 4 1/4. 4 1/4. Remember, your dark blade is your cutting blade and your light blade is your scoring blade, which we won't be using the scoring blade. So there we have one of the first pieces that we're going to use, and that's the one that is right here. So we'll set that aside. So now you can see we need these triangles. Now we did this one time a year ago at a downline meeting, and everybody just put it in there and they cut it in 2 triangles, but it must be cut this way to do the cards the way I'm doing them. So what you'll do is say, I need to cut from this corner to this corner. So just put your finger on the 2 corners you need, then lift up your clear guide and put your paper, 1 corner in the cutting groove, the other corner at the bottom of the cutting groove. And then I do find when I do this, sometimes the cutting blade will get caught at that tear right there. So what I do is I just go a little bit in on the paper, go up, and then it goes down wonderfully. So now you can see I have these 2 pieces that will be going onto a card, and I'll set those ones aside. So now we have this half left over. And as you can see, I already drew where we're going to actually be cutting it. So what we're going to do is we need to cut 3.5 by 5.5. So 3.5 by 5.5. So what I did is I turned my paper on the 8.5-inch side, and then I put the left side of the paper at 3.5. At 3.5, that gives me this next piece I'll be putting on my card. Now the next piece is a 1-inch piece. So leaving my paper in the same position up at the raised portion here, I'm just going to put this over to 1 inch on the left side of your paper, on the left side of the groove. And I'm going to cut down, and now I have a 1 inch by 5.5 inch. And that piece is going to fit right there to make another card. Now you'll see here I need a 2 3/4 by, what is that? 2 3/4 by, let me measure that here. It's by 4 inches. Okay, so there we, oh, I should have known that. Okay, so I'm going to take the 5.5-inch side, and I'm going to go to 2 3/4, 2 3/4, and now I have this piece that will be right here. So now this next piece is already cut to 2 3/4, right? Because we just cut this piece in half. So now we're just going to cut 1, 1, 1, 1. And to do that, I just put the right side on the right side of the cutting groove at 1 inch and went down. And then it's very important at this point too to turn over your paper so that you, when you put this card back together, you want the puzzle pieces to fit together. So what I do is I just take it and I write the numbers. I'm going to put this as 4. And then I'm going to come over here and put this at 1 again on the right side. I'm going to cut it again. And I'm going to make this the third piece. And then I'll put the right side at 1 inch, which naturally puts the left side at 1 inch. And then I will cut down there. And then, of course, this piece will be 2. And this piece will be 1. So when I go to put these pieces back together again on the card, I won't have to do too much thinking, because you know crafting can be a little stressful. So there I'll have my 4 pieces that match together. So there is the piece that's going to go here. See if you do this, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 card, 2 card, 3 card, 4 card, 5 card, 6 card, 7 card. Out of 1 sheet that we made using images from the Soft Sayings card kit. So now we're going to get started on the cards. Okay. So that first piece we cut, the first piece we cut was a 4 1/4 by 5.5, a full sheet. So what I did on that one is I'm going to get my paper trimmer out of the way. So for that card, and all of these will be posted on my blog, for that card, I started out with a Whisper White thick cardstock card base in a portrait position. So that was 8.5 by 5.5 scored at 4 1/4. And so what I did is I took that card and get my snail. And so I had this piece that was a full sheet, and I am going to adhere it to the front of the thick Whisper White card base. So it's a 4 1/4 by 5.5. It was this corner up here, the right corner. And I'm just going to, I find it easy when I'm covering the front of a card to put it so it has a level surface, and then boom, it fits on perfectly. So now I've got the front of this card done. And what I did is I wanted to use all the different colors that are in the new in colors. So, on this one, I stamped the word thanks from the Soft Sayings card kit. This is sticking on here. Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. So the first thing I did was I picked out the Call Me Clover and the Blueberry Bushel, and then we have a 1/8 inch grosgrain ribbon in new in colors this year. And so I just put the lovely lipstick there. And then you can we're just gonna line this up. We're gonna put some adhesive on the back of this. And a lot of times I use my grid paper. It is, next to my Stampin' trimmer, one of my favorite tools. And then I can just see and line up these lines, any line on here, and it keeps it straight. You can see I have a little adhesive under my ribbon here because it's going to be hidden. Now on this card, since I used the blue, green, and pink, I used a grapefruit here, lovely lipstick here, but for some reason I had this one cut on my desk, so this one I used up my dimensionals, all the corner parts. Don't throw away those corner parts. So I just used the pineapple punch. And then I just lined up, I think I lined up the thanks there. So then I've got all the colors represented on that card. And then I have a little bit of adhesive there, just rub it off. And so there is card number 1 made from the right corner. So now we're going to use these 2 triangles on our next 2 cards. So our next card, I decided to make it using a card base of Grapefruit Grove. So what I did is I did the Grapefruit Grove in the portrait position, again, 8.5 by 5.5, score at 4 1/4. And then what I did is I took that triangle that we cut and I'm going to adhere it straight to the front of the card with some snail adhesive here. Once again, if you make your level surface, it's a lot easier to get that attached there. There we go. Got it lined up. And so now I have that triangle there. The next thing I did was I used an 8.5 inch piece of Call Me Clover, which was a 1/2 inch wide, and I'm just going to put adhesive on it, and I'm going to take it on the diagonal on the front of the card. So get some of that on there, and then I'm just going to put it right along the diagonal, and then I can just easily snip off these little green strips of paper here. I should do it, close it so I can see it. A little difficult there. So just snip off the Call Me Clover green. It's such a bright, fresh green. I love this color. It seems every time a green comes out, I think another green, but they all have their place. Isn't it funny? Okay, so now we've got those colors represented, and then I just made a simple, and I just made use of my 2-inch punch, my 2 1/4 inch punch, and like I said, all these dimensions will be on the blog. So what I did is just put some lovely lipstick flowers and the Call Me Clover leaves, and I used the Grapefruit Grove for the sentiment, love you lots. And then I just used my dimensionals and I attached them to the card. And then I found that sometimes when you layer your cards, they have a little more dimension and then they kind of wobble a little bit. So I put it right on the dimension of the layers. And then I can just adhere the tag there. And we've got our second card done. Now our third card also has that triangle on it, and this time I used the, whoa, bright, get your shades out. This pineapple punch is quite a punch of color, really bright yellow. So on this card we used the other triangle we had cut, and this time I put it in a landscape position, and then I put the triangle down on the bottom. So I just adhered the triangle on the bottom of the card, making sure it is lined up on the top and the bottom. Ooh, didn't quite get it there, kids. Let's get this straight here. Let it wind over here a little bit. Definitely don't want any of the yellow showing on here because it is pretty bright and it'll definitely show through if you have. There we go. Okay, so again, we're going to put a Call Me Clover border along the one edge of that triangle. So we're just going to put it along that edge and trim off the green again on that edge. Slippy fingers. If it's not sticky fingers, it's slippy fingers. I think I would like, oh, that's fine if it looks that way. Could have lined this one up a little bit better, but hey, there we go. So we've got a border on there. And then once again, I just use my different colors in the new In Colors ink pads. And I use the Lovely Lipstick for Just a Note, another sentiment in that Soft Sayings stamp set. And then I use the Pineapple Punch and the Grapefruit Grove. Put it on some Blueberry Bushel to give it a pop there. And then, again, I put some dimensionals on the card itself. And then I don't have as much wobbliness. Okay, so then I just adhered it in the center, and we've got our third card done. So our fourth card is going to use, this piece down here that we cut, which was 3.5 by 5.5. And that piece is going to be used on this card. And what we did here is we used it this way. We put the card on the side of the card in a portrait position. But this time I opened it from here. So this would be 11 by 4.25 scored at 5.5. 11 by 4.25 scored at 5.5. And so it'll open from the bottom. And then what I did is, here we go. I got some different colors out here, and I want to adhere this to the, and this is my 3.5 by 5.5 inch piece, and I want to adhere it to this side, to the right side of my card when it opens from the bottom. So I put it on there. Then I wanted to create some more color on the card, so I'm going to put the Call Me Clover border here, but I'm going to put some ribbon on it to add some yellow in. So what I'll do is put some adhesive on the bottom edges of the green, and I will take the Pineapple Punch 1/8 inch grosgrain ribbon, and I'm going to put a little bit of adhesive here for the ribbon because we're going to be covering it up with the sentiment here. But we shouldn't put it on the card, should we? Ding dong. Okay. So there we go, and then we're going to put it around there. So now we could adhere this right along the border of the stamped part of the card. So we will just adhere it with an equal part of blue showing, and we'll just adhere it to the card. Now I want to show you a trick here. I used a half inch scrap of Whisper White. And I want to put this border with a pennant edge on here. And I want to make sure that I have my hexagon punch retired, but I use it all the time. It's never retired for me. So what I want to do is I want to have an equal amount of border here at the pennant, and I want them to match, and a portion over here that's equal to this side. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I do. So I will not adhere it yet. So I will put my piece of the half inch Whisper White after I've stamped it, so I know how much of the paper is going to be, and I'll just put it on and hold it nice and tight with my hands together. Now I'm going to take that corner, this pointed end of one of the hexagon points, and I'm going to see the image there, pull it out a little bit, And now I know that my blueberry bushel and my Whisper White are going to be exactly the same. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere it. Now, being careful to put it back the same way, because sometimes when you use the hexagon punch, we're not absolutely perfect. We aren't machines. So sometimes those pennants are a little different. So now I know that even if this pennant was a little shorter than this one, they're exactly the same. And now I know all I have to do is come over here. I can do this with my snips if I feel really confident, or I can just put it into my paper trimmer and just go straight. And now, perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this over the place where I put the little bit of adhesive and the adhesive that got stuck on the card when I pulled it on there. So what I'm going to do is put some dimensional on the one part of the card itself. There we go. And then I'm going to put a piece off to the edge. Okay, so I have 2 pieces there. And then I'm going to adhere my sentiment nice and straight there. There we go. And so we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4th card done. So the next card's just going to use this one singular little 1 inch by 5.5 inch. Now that 1 inch by 5.5 inch needed a little bit of help because he was just a little plain and a little small. So what I did is I did some more stamping on this one. So what I did is I put a piece of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch Whisper White, and I just stamped it up. I used the sentiment Happy Birthday, I Think You Are Wonderful, lipstick, lovely lipstick, and then I did some Pineapple Punch, Grapefruit Grove, and Call Me Clover. So then I just added on the blueberry bushel border here, which is 1 1/4 by 5 1/4 by 1 1/4 for the blueberry bushel. But as I said, all those dimensions are going to be found on my blog, cindyleebedesigns.com, so have no fear. So what we're going to do is make a card base made of the Call Me Clover, and it's 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5.5 to make it a bottom opening portrait card. So we're going to attach this 4 1/4 or 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White that we've stamped with all of the in colors. This card could almost be the poster child for the new in colors, every color. If we put a little blue flower there, we would have just been perfect. Maybe I might do that. So then the next thing is we have to be aware that it was a little bit longer when we cut it. So I want this to be a little bit shorter. So what we're going to do is go ahead and adhere this entire piece of the stamped image, this 1 inch by 5.5 inch, to there. And then we're going to bring back our Stampin' trimmer, and we're just going to make it so that it's 5 1/4. So it'll fit against that panel that we have on there. So 5 1/4. There we go. I don't like to snip on that because it's a bigger portion of cardstock and you want it to match perfectly. So then I just adhered that right along that edge of the Whisper White. Whoop. Keeping my eyes straight on the line. So there we go. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards done. So the next card we're going to do uses this 2 3/4 inch piece. Let's see. That 2 by 4, right? It was 4. 2 3/4 by 4. So we made this card with that piece. I used a Whisper White cardstock in a landscape position, so that meant I was starting with an 8.5 by 5.5, and then I scored it at 4 1/4, and then I used the landscape position. And what I did with this one is I put a little blueberry bushel border around the stamped image. Since this was 2 3/4 by 4, I had to make the border 3 by 4 1/4. So what I did was I just adhered this colorful panel to the piece of blueberry bushel, having a nice 1/8 inch border all around, and then adhered this to the front of the card. And then just to make my eyes, I put it there, and then I can use my grid paper as somewhat of a measuring stick there. So now I have that on there. So I was going to put a sentiment down here, but then I just decided I think just the middle would be great. So what I did was use the Lovely Label punch. I think that's what the name of it is, Lovely Label. Lovely Label? I'm not sure, please forgive me. But this punch is carrying over also. So pretty. Label Me Pretty is the stamp set that goes with it. And what I did was I punched out a 1 3/4 inch circle and put behind it because it just gives it a nice pop. So once you do the stamping and the colors are on there, it just looked kind of bland. It just looked like it kind of blended in too much with that. So I just put the circle right behind it. But before I did that, what did I do? I put a little bit of blueberry bushel. Now I used, oh gosh, I love this new framelit that's in the Lakeside framelits. They come with a lily pad pond that's coming out, and it's so nice. It's going to cut out all your tiny little sentiments, and it also creates lovely, lovely accents. So that is from the Lakeside framelits that are coming out, but that just adds another punch to that punched out label. So here we go. We'll do the lovely lipstick. And then we have the blueberry bushel. And then I just think we should pop that up with some dimensionals as well. So my girlfriend Louise, she doesn't watch videos, but she's a cutie. We were teasing her about dimensionals at the last class. We were all talking and got so carried away about putting 100 dimensionals on the back of the apron. It was so cute. Love her. So here we go, and we're just going to put this right in the middle, and now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards done. We're almost to the 7th. Okay, so the 7th one is going to use 1, 2, 3, 4 1 inch by 2 3/4 inch pieces that we cut. So here we go. And this one I used a lovely lipstick card base. And this one's also in the landscape position, so that means I started with an 8.5 by 5.5. I scored it at 4 1/4 and made it landscape position. So this one, I had to put these 4 panels, and I needed to put something under them, so I chose that bold blueberry bushel. So that's what we're going to do. And remember, when I did that, I labeled these in order so that I didn't have to sit here and play a puzzle game. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And because it's 1 by 2 3/4, it'll end up being, the dimensions for the blueberry bushel is 3 by 4.5, because we have to have a little bit in between each one. So this part can be, I think I just put them in the wrong order because they're not looking right. Okay, so let's put them this way. 1, 2, 3. Okay, they went in order. All right, so this is a little tricky. So I put the two ones on the edges. So I put this one, and then I put 1 and 4 down first. Then I can play a little bit with these 2 inner ones, because it does take a little bit of playing around with it. to get like an equal amount of blue in between them. That's probably the hardest part about this one card. But since it is Mother's Day today, everything went perfect, except for the fact that it's going to be covered up anyhow. I put it on the blue with the pencil mark on it, but we're going to be putting a sentiment on there anyhow. So I went to do this card on the lovely lipstick base, card base, and I could have just done that. But it looked like it needed a little bit something else. So I just cut a piece that was a quarter inch bigger on the length and the width. So that made it 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. And then I just put that behind the blue. A little bit of white between two bold colors is a great design accent when you're designing a card. So I just put that white. See how that pops when it gets the white behind it? It just gives it a whole different look. And so then we're just going to adhere this panel to our lovely lipstick. And just get an equal amount of lovely lipstick showing. And then I just took and stamped "I'm happy you're in my life," another great sentiment that's in that Soft Sayings stamp set. And I just pen it ends, and what the way I did that was I did it the same way I showed you before. I did this side first and then the other side. And then I put some dimensionals. Let's just put 3 there. And luckily, we're going to cover up that pencil mark since I forgot to flip that blueberry bushel panel over whenever I was making this. So we're just going to put that right in the middle of the card. And that's our 7th card. So there we go. We made a one-sheet wonder by creating a designer series paper with our own Whisper White cardstock and with our own new colors, the Blueberry Bushel, the Lovely Lipstick, the Pineapple Punch, the Grapefruit Grove, and Call Me Clover Green. And then we just cut each of these pieces to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards out of there. And I'll have all of these cards on my blog with the dimensions that I used for each of them. This is great to do for a class to show a great stamp set that has a lot of sentiments in it. It's great to do for a class to show all the beautiful colors. This is going to be displayed at my annual kickoff luncheon where I can show all the girls the beautiful new colors, how fresh and bright, and how they complement each other. So if you want to know any more about how to make a one-sheet wonder using a 8.5 by 11 sheet that you make of your own, just go to my blog, cindyleeBdesigns.com. Under the One Sheet Wonder and Soft Saying stamp set, you'll get to see all of these cards, all the dimensions, and all of the materials I used. Thanks for buzzing by, friends.